Hi, my name is Lily Meade. I am the author of The Shadow Sister, publishing with Sourcebooks Fire in summer 2023. And today I am here because I finally figured out a way to relate my obsession with Taylor Swift to my writing career. Welcome to the first official episode of Pop Culture Storytelling, where I talk about my favorite things in media and how they've inspired me as a writer. I have a couple older videos similar to this, but I thought it would be a fun idea to make an ongoing series of it. Maybe that way I can convince my accountant that Netflix is a business expense. I'm joking about that, but I'm not joking about how you can learn to become a better writer by listening to Taylor Swift. Taylor, my meanest bestie, has kept me up past midnight every night for the past month and a half, and while I have certainly lost several brain cells to it, it has given me a lot of time to think. Today, I have 5 tips from Taylor's songwriting to help you become a better writer. Tip number 1, be vulnerable and honest. Taylor is unapologetically and sometimes humiliatingly honest in her songwriting. She's known for treating her songs like a diary, and just as often as she exposes wrongdoers, she exposes herself. She cuts her insecurities wide open, not solely as a form of masochism, but also a calculated risk of relatability. There's a reason her songs are loved by so many different types of people, and she herself knows it isn't simply the sound of them. Her fans love her for her lyricism and the way they know that no matter what genre she plays around in, they will find a story that they have lived 1,000 times before. The best stories are the ones we are terrified to tell because of what they reveal about ourselves as the author. In my debut novel, my main character opens the book with the line, "My sister is a bitch, but that doesn't mean I want her dead." I was worried the entire time I was writing that first draft that line and my main character herself was too much or too flawed to be liked. I worried the same thing about myself. I'm definitely not saying I'm anywhere near as skilled as Taylor, but I think we both approach our writing in a similar way. We both use our words to weave stories that process our pain and immortalize our joy. Like a diary, like self-therapy, like an exorcism, honestly. My debut novel was the first project I really took risks on since a traumatizing experience that made me fear my career was over before it even began. My own personal reputation era, if you will. I totally expected to have to change the opening line of The Shadow Sister if a publisher wanted to buy it, but to my surprise, my editor loved it. Early readers have all adored the first line, and I've received several compliments on other moments I was anxious about too, spots where I injected the fictional narrative with my own truths. People like to embrace characters that don't feel perfect and unattainable. They like flaws. They like to feel seen. This is something that Taylor does exceedingly well. Tip number 2, embrace the different facets of your creativity. Recently, Taylor explained that she internally categorizes her songs into 3 different categories: quill pen songs, fountain pen songs, and glitter gel pen songs. Most of her songs fall into fountain pen territory, which she describes as modern personal stories written like poetry that you remember all too well. Quill pen stories feel older, set in a time where people wore corsets and poet shirts, and the word choices are equally as old-fashioned and almost storybook. Glitter gel pen songs are just as they sound, fun, danceable songs that don't take themselves too seriously. Part of why Taylor is able to successfully reinvent herself and never get typecast into a specific type of sound is because she doesn't toss out her lighthearted moments for an album of solely sad ballads. And in a similar vein, she intersperses heart-wrenching perspectives into a beat you can dance to. No story is stronger for lingering on a single feeling. A full narrative, like a good album, is better when it takes you on a journey. It may help you to take an inventory of your ideas and writing tendencies and use that to make sure you are balancing your emotional beats more effectively. Tip number 3, twist the narrative and turn things on their head. One of my favorite devices in Taylor's storytelling is the progression of chorus perspective as a song moves forward. In You're On Your Own Kid from her new album Midnights, the narrator goes from a lovesick teenager to an ambitious runaway to a jaded sellout through single line changes in the chorus leading up to the bridge. This is a common tactic Taylor uses in her songs to recontextualize her catchy hooks and unpack her metaphors. Another trick Taylor loves is telling you the story about someone or something else and then at the end, sharing how it relates to her personally. In The Last Great American Dynasty from Folklore, she tells the story of a woman judged by all her morally superior neighbors for not obeying their rules or assimilating. How despite all her rebellion, her house sat empty for decades, free of women with madness, their men, and bad habits, until it was bought by Taylor herself. Both of these tactics remind me how it feels to read a book that ends on a big twist or revelation that makes you want to flip back to the start of the book and reread it with this entirely new context. I love stories and obviously songs like this. There's something almost scandalous about it, even though it's not hiding anything. It feels like you're in on a secret, which makes you feel more attached to the story being told. Tip number 4, embrace metaphor and what inspires you. Sometimes when I'm listening to Taylor's music, I get so angry at her lyricism, so mad not at her, but at myself for not thinking of these incredible lines first. This is usually when she takes a common metaphor or simile and just slaps it into a brutal cut. The line, "We never had a shotgun shot in the dark," and "there were sirens in the beat of your heart" from Getaway Car, pretty much that entire song, makes me feel like I'm at a gourmet restaurant eating the best meal I've ever had, and I'm just like so happy, but also so upset that not every meal can be like this. Taylor has a talent for taking really relatable ideas and pairing or describing them in a way that you wouldn't expect. It's an extension of that last tip, her tendency to twist what you expect. It's a fun way to explore writing prose. When I'm writing, I like to think of the best way to use my metaphors, not only to enhance the single line it lives in, but the scene as a whole. How can this comparison I'm making ricochet across the point I'm making? How can it deepen the emotions I want to invoke? How can it reveal things within my narrator that I'm not having them voice out loud? Another way to do this is to return to your inspirations. One of Taylor's first big hits was Love Story, a retelling of Romeo and Juliet that gives them the happy ending that they were denied in their original story. Taylor often makes references to literature, music, and figures that inspire her, never in a way that feels dated, but a natural addition to the narrative. Peter losing Wendy from Cardigan on Folklore, when you think Tim McGraw from her debut, the entirety of Wonderland on 1989, I could really go all day. We're often warned not to make too many references to things in popular culture for fear that it could lock our story to a specific time frame that might be unrelatable to readers in the future. You'll want to be careful of the references you make, but it's still another tactic you could employ, perhaps a bit more sparingly than the other tips. And finally, tip number 5. Don't be afraid to burn it all down. One of my favorite things about Taylor is her commitment to pettiness. I attend the school of thought that success is the best revenge, and Taylor refuses to back down. We as fans weren't expecting a new album this year because Taylor has dedicated herself to re-recording her first 6 albums, not only to own her own work, but as a message to younger artists to avoid predatory contracts, like the one she signed when she was a starry-eyed teenager. She'd rather set fire to her past than be tied to puppet masters that don't have her best interests at heart. I can't explain, at least quickly in this video, how empowering that is to me. But Taylor doesn't just take risks in her life, she takes risks in her work with every new album she makes. The world has always tried to typecast her as a certain type of artist from her very first album. When she decided to transition to pop from country, it wasn't perceived as a slam dunk by everyone. Even in lyrics on Red, Taylor says, "Who's Taylor Swift anyway?" and talks about her ex-boyfriend listening to some indie record that's so much cooler than mine. But instead of listening to the naysayers, she doubled down and created 1989, which is one of the most awarded and well-regarded pop albums in history. She never makes the same album twice, even if people are clamoring for it. She always values trying new techniques rather than getting comfortable in a single type of sound. As someone who is always trying to improve, I can tell you that is terrifying. I'm currently writing the second book in my contract, and it is very different from The Shadow Sister. I'm scared every day that no one will like it as much as they like the first, but I don't want to write the same story forever. I'm constantly growing and changing. Taylor knows that we'll follow her no matter what, because we don't love her for the notes she plays, but the stories she tells. To develop a readership like that is a dream. Hopefully one day I can achieve it too. Tell me in a comment, does Taylor inspire your writing? How so? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.